Why, hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan here. I am live on this beautiful day, day after 4th of July. I'm here in New York City. I hope everyone's having a nice day. Let me see if everything here is working. I see I'm on YouTube. Let me know if you could hear me, if you could see me. We have quite the momentous news day here so far. I see a few people in the chat. Tell me if you can hear me, if you can see me. It's been a while. Yes, yes. So we have breaking news, and I'm going to keep it to you real. Scott Pruitt, who besides being, one of the most reckless, moronic idiots to ever run a government agency. Scott Pruitt ran the EPA. From my reporting on the ground, the EPA has been corrupt and awful predating Donald Trump. But Scott Pruitt took that and put it on steroids. Scott Pruitt basically met with every fossil fuel executive in this hemisphere and probably all over the world. I said July 5th, the day after July 4th. Thank you very much. Scott Pruitt met with every single fossil fuel executive in the Western Hemisphere. Barely ever met with environmental activists. Pushed through deregulation on everything from car emissions to offshore drilling to greenhouse gases. You name it. Scott Pruitt basically made the environment in this country open season for oil and gas, fossil fuel companies, and wanted to roll things back even worse than things were being rolled back. Yes, President Obama did some good things, but he also allowed the fracking to continue in this country to points that we had never seen before. But Scott Pruitt, on Donald Trump's direction, basically said, to hell with the environment. It doesn't affect us when we're living in our ivory towers up on Trump Plaza, or wherever the hell Scott Pruitt was living, because apparently he was trying to get, cheap hotel rooms and things like that. So this is definitely a victory that Scott Pruitt resigned. By the way, he was fired. This is Washington, D.C.'s fancy way or kind way of saying somebody got fired. But what's troubling to me, yes, progressives are going to do a victory lap today, as they should. You got to take small victories where you can get it. But Scott Pruitt was just a vessel for Donald Trump. So it's not like the interim director, who I think is now going to be taking over, is going to all of a sudden say, we need to move to wind and solar. We need to stop deregulating, fossil fuels and fracking and all these things. Of course not. It's still going to be open season on the environment. You're going to have fracking like we've never seen, and now we're seeing under Obama. It was starting to slowly become okay to target protests in America, target environmental protesters, target indigenous people. That happened under Obama, which he never got any criticism for, really, by the media. We saw that in Standing Rock. But under Trump, it's really, and Pruitt, it's really gone into high gear as far as going after people, environmental protesters, calling them eco-terrorists, trying to elevate these lawsuits. We see a lawsuit against Greenpeace for $300 million, saying Greenpeace, a great environmental organization, was serving to help eco-terrorists in Standing Rock. So, yes, it's a victory that Scott Pruitt got fired and, or resigned. But let's not get too excited now, because whoever takes over for Scott Pruitt is going to be just as corrupt, because the media only covered the scandal relating to Scott Pruitt. They didn't particularly want to cover all the terrible environmental things he was doing, because the media doesn't really care about the environment, because the media itself is bought off. CNN has the American Petroleum Institute running commercials. MSNBC, did you see that Morning Joe softball interview last year with Charles and David Koch? It was more disgusting than the softball interviews they gave President Trump, for God's sakes. And by the way, folks, if you're not aware now, I should have said it, I have a super chat now, so you could drop support in my super chat. We finally got monetized on this channel. YouTube sat on their, behinds for quite some time. So now, I don't know how you could do it. Jen's in the live chat. She'll tell you how to do it. But you could click the button and be super. So thank you for your contributions. Scott Pruitt had coal lobbyists walking in and out the White House. Scott Pruitt had emails written for him by the coal and fossil fuel industry before he got into the White House. This is how corrupt this man is. So yes, he was corrupt as far as trying to get cheap hotel rooms and doing shady things, using his EPA administrator position. But honestly, maybe not a popular opinion, I don't really care about any of that stuff. That's not why Scott Pruitt should be covered critically. He should be covered critically because Scott Pruitt single-handedly probably set the environment and the world back, I'd say 5 to 10 years through that deregulation. We haven't seen this kind of deregulation. Basically, what Scott Pruitt and Donald Trump have done is essentially just have a corner office in the White House for coal executives, for big oil executives, and all these people that essentially are trying to, they see the writing on the wall. Coal is out, right? Fossil fuels, you maybe got another 5 to 10 years of this fracking and things like that. Everything is moving to wind and solar and renewable energy. And if these companies that have no souls, they're all sociopaths. They don't care about their children. They don't care about their grandchildren. Thank you, Denise, $5. Finally, I even sent them a nastygram for not monetizing you. Thank you, Denise, for $5 and for sending YouTube a nastygram. I sent them worse than a nastygram because we should have been monetized at 10,000 subscribers. Now we're at 14,000. Finally, they monetized us. So at least we can make a little money here. We also, I'll make some announcements later on. So definitely thank you guys, whoever is leaving contributions through Super Chat and whoever is a monthly Patreon subscriber. I haven't been doing my podcasts and video diaries as much because I was in Flint doing actual reporting. What a concept, doing actual reporting. Jen and I, my business partner who's in the chat, Jen and I knocked on 400 doors. 400 doors in Flint, Michigan over the last month. And boy, have we found a doozy. And let's just say the EPA, even though Scott Pruitt is no longer at the helm, is not going to be happy about what I found, what Jen and I found. And yes, sadly, I do have to report that Ed Schultz has died. I'm going to get to that after this, but I did think I should start with Scott Pruitt. Ed Schultz, who to me is a progressive media champion, hero, has passed away at the age of 64. I will get into my memories of him. I actually worked at MSNBC when he was there. I only spoke with him once, but I do know quite a lot about Ed Schultz, so we're going to get to that a little bit later. But I want to get into what this actually means. What this actually means as far as the EPA, as far as the country and the world. Because although I'm attacked as having elected Donald Trump, right? Jimmy Dore is attacked as having elected Donald Trump. A lot of progressive media people, Susan Sarandon, poor Susan, one of the most progressive actresses we have in this country, and everything that goes wrong in this country is now Susan Sarandon's fault. Pine Verens just left money. Now you could afford a printed Patreon poster. Ty, my former cameraman at the Young Turks, and now my current cameraman, he has come over. Ty has joined us. Thank God. I love that man. He's working on the mini documentary right now in Los Angeles. Ty is working on getting us a much better sign for Patreon. I don't have it up right now. So thank you very much for that. But what does this mean? So here's what I think, right? So if Hillary Clinton would have became president, a lot of you won't like what I'm about to say, but I got to keep it real. She would not have been this awful on the environment. I think she'd be a lot worse than Trump in quite a few areas, but on the environment, frankly, I underestimated how bad Trump would be because he didn't really talk about the environment during his rallies that I covered. It was always like a footnote. Would have never known he was going to bring in the CEO of ExxonMobil to run the State Department and Scott Pruitt, who is essentially a glorified public relations person for coal and fossil fuel companies. That is Scott Pruitt. So I think that if Hillary Clinton were president, she would have kept on the fracking going on, and largely everybody would have stayed asleep. But we saw since Trump put this awful, almost like cardboard cutout of a corrupt, fossil fuel friendly, coal friendly executive in, we have seen historic efforts to basically historic environmental activism. Not just indigenous people, but we have seen people that have not come out to march for this planet come out in record numbers because people are finally awake. I'm not pro-Trump. I've never defended Donald Trump, and I don't like him. I didn't vote for him, and I would never tell anyone to vote for him. So before everyone comes at me, let's just put it simply. Scott Pruitt is a manifestation of Donald Trump, and we have seen a renewed vigor and activism and candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And frankly, even though she didn't win, I interviewed Paula Jean Swearengin in West Virginia the night of that primary against Joe Manchin. Let me tell you something. Even though she didn't win, Paula Jean Swearengin getting 48,000 votes in West Virginia, largely running against Joe Manchin's, Joe Manchin might as well be blowing coal executives in West Virginia. Oop, there goes my monetization, but what the hell? Let's have some fun today, shall we? Joe Manchin might as well be fucking blowing coal executives in West Virginia. That night that I interviewed Paula Jean Swearengin and her volunteers in West Virginia, the night she lost to Joe Manchin, literally, we spoke with people who said, every single block in this neighborhood, everyone has cancer. Everyone has cancer. And Jen could attest to that because she was with me in West Virginia. We were just in Flint, Michigan. I'm working probably on the biggest story of my career right now. Jen is largely responsible for that story. We knocked on 400 doors. Without getting too specific, let's just say we found direct evidence that the state of Michigan cheated on the water testing in Flint to artificially lower the lead levels. This has nothing to do with Scott Pruitt. And by the way, the people like Joe Manchin cuddling up to coal executives and being corrupt predate Scott Pruitt. So I want to propose cautious excitement on this day. Because don't get me wrong, Scott Pruitt, corrupt as they come. Donald Trump, corrupt as they come. Let me tell you something. If Barron Trump, Donald Trump's little kid, drank poison water, I don't really know if Trump would care that much. Hate to say it. These people don't really get affected unless it's them drinking the contaminated water, or them getting cancer from the uranium leaking out of mines, or them getting cancer from the coal. Miss you on TTT, would love to see you on the main show. Sorry, not there anymore, but I'm here now, and we are very, very close, my friends, to all 150 of you watching, very, very close to launching our new media network, Status Coup. And your contributions are making it happen. Jen and I would have not been able to go to Flint for 2 weeks and knock on the doors we knocked on and get this story that we're working on that, make no mistake about it, is the biggest story I have ever worked on in my 10-year media career. This story has the potential to totally expose the state of Michigan. So if I wind up dead, you know that's why. And I am not exaggerating. If I wind up not breathing or no longer here on this planet, you will know it's because the state of Michigan found out what we uncovered and made sure I disappeared. So we are trying to launch Status Coup. Status Coup. We have the website almost ready. We have brought on Ty Bayless. Ty Bayless is my former cameraman and editor with the Young Turks. He has come on with us full time now for Status Coup. He was just with us for part of that trip in Flint. And he is now working on a mini documentary we are going to put out there, all of our door knocking. I mean, I can't tell you how many sick people we met. Jen and I were talking while we were there, because literally every block we went, it was like we knocked on doors trying to find people, and literally 5 or 6 people have recently died in Flint. It is literally ethnic cleansing going on. You or anyone from the team better not end up dead. I hope not. And I hope my mother's not watching, because she's going to call me all worried. But hey, for those of you just coming in, if you don't know, I am monetized now, so you could leave funds in this super chat. We've had 160 people while we were on the road in Flint, and before that in Virginia, leave money. 160 people sponsored me so we could stay out there and report. And trust me, rain or shine, I'm going to break this story, and you are going to see exactly what you were funding, because you made it happen. You made it happen. Natty and Daddy show. I pledge right now that if they do take out Jordan, you might as well take out me too, because I will pick up right where he left off and make sure you're all exposed. I say amen, Natty and Daddy show. Amen. Can I get an amen? But let's not take me out. I have a few more things left to do on this earth. I'm feeling pretty confident, though, as you can see from my pink shirt. So I want to say a few more other things on Scott Pruitt. So I don't want, everyone's excited. They see the headlines, Scott Pruitt's out. Don't get a false sense of security. Donald Trump is still the president. The coal companies, the fossil fuel companies, big oil, are still running this country. That's why they call it the United States of Oil. And make no mistake about it, Donald Trump is trying to make America the number one source of oil exports. That's what the Dakota Access Pipeline was all about. That's what the Trans-Pecos Pipeline is all about. That's what Line 3 in Minnesota, which they're fighting about right now, is all about. That's what the Atlantic Coast Pipeline is all about. That's what Mountain Valley Pipeline, which thanks to your funding, we were able to go out there to Virginia and West Virginia, cover the Mountain Valley Pipeline, cover that toxic, totally unnecessary natural gas pipeline in Virginia, where brave Virginians and West Virginians have been climbing up in trees, and protesting for one woman. Nutty was her name. I don't know her real name. This woman protested atop a monopod in a forest for over 60 days. And guess what? Temporarily, they have suspended all construction on that pipeline. Jen and I are not taking credit for it because we were out there. But I will tell you one thing. We were the only national reporters out in Virginia covering that pipeline and the tree protesters. We were the only ones there, and we were there because you funded us to be there in the early days of this operation, pre-status coup. So we've already helped stop one pipeline. The reporting we are going to do on Flint that we have found, I'm hoping, is going to help basically make them have to redo all the testing, because the testing has been fraudulent in Flint. And there are very, very powerful forces right now trying to stop that story from getting out. It's getting out whether they like it or not. So thank you to the people who have funded us. But I just want to say on Scott Pruitt, this is not a time to rest. This is not a time. This is why I think with Standing Rock, a big reason Standing Rock ended up in the ground, Dakota Access Pipeline, is because after Obama denied that final permit, everyone did a victory dance, and everyone's human, and everybody was excited that day. That was one of the most joyous things I've ever seen in the field. People were crying, dancing, celebrating. People had fought for months, some for years, to stop that pipeline. Obama denied the permit. Everybody went to sleep. Trump comes in, switches it like that. So now is not the time to stop protesting. People need to be out at the White House today and tomorrow, not just protesting Scott Pruitt and Donald Trump, but the whole administration. Because they're going to slip in, whoever they're going to slip in to replace Scott Pruitt isn't going to magically just part the seas and be like, you know what, we've erred here. We've erred here. We need to stop building these pipelines. We need to stop letting this revolving door of fossil fuel and coal executives into the White House. We need to cut that out. As Hillary Clinton said, I told them to cut it out. No. They're going to double down. They're going to triple down. Hobo Raiders. Is Status Quo a news network similar to TYT or something? I'm not going to talk about TYT. You can make your judgment about them. I am going to tell you what Status Quo is. Status Quo will be an independent, keyword independent, news network. Keyword news. We're not interested in just commentating about the news 24/7. I think there's totally room for that. I think there's value in people like Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kulinski, Mike Figueredo, Jamarl Thomas, Lee Camp, and the rest. I think there's a lot of room for commentators, but I think we need people out in the field. And I don't think there's a news outlet out there right now that, frankly, is out in the field doing what I did for TYT and what we're going to do at Status Quo. I am not interested in sitting here in my apartment for the rest of my life and just commenting. Maybe in a few years when my muscles give out finally, because my back is screwed up. I want to show you what's going on. And Jen could tell you. Jen joined me on the past 2 reporting trips I took. One was in Virginia, the last one in Flint. Nobody knows what's really going on in this country until you go out in the field and you literally knock on doors, which is what we just did. We literally, thank you, Gabrielle, $10 from 100. I don't know how to read foreign currency. Feel the love from Sweden. I think I need to come to Sweden. I had an old cameraman who was from Sweden, and he always said to me, "I don't understand your police in America. In Sweden, the police they're there to protect the people. They don't even carry around guns. They're there to protect the people." Sorry for my accent. So Sweden's on my list. Zoops20 left $10. Thank you, Jen and Jordan and Ty. Love the work you guys do. There's more coming, so get ready. Get ready. But status quo is going to be myself, Ty, Jen, and when we get defending, we plan on hiring other reporters because I can't be out in the field 24/7. Jordan needs to take his shirt off now. No, I'm trying to get people to send in money. I'm trying to get people to send me money, not to scare them away. Endo, what are you trying to do here? Nobody wants to see me without a shirt. But status quo is going to be a network of independent reporters. For the majority of us are going to be out in the field, covering real stories. So there's some outlets that talk about investigative reporting, but do it from the comfy confines of their kitchen. Not interested. Of course, we can't be out in the field all the time. That does get expensive. But we're going to be out there for a lot of the time. And I already know for a fact it's going to be successful because we just had a test pilot. We were out in Virginia. We were out in Flint. And people will pay for real journalism because it's not only that they want it. People need real journalism. People need real journalism, which is a segue because I want to get to the sad news that Ed Schultz has died. But one more thing about Scott Pruitt. I keep going on detours. This is a victory. Scott Pruitt resigned. He was fired. That's what really happened. But don't take your eye off the ball, people, because as bad as the gun epidemic is, as bad as basically the new Gilded Age we have, this is the Gilded Age again. Trump has made it the Gilded Age. Income inequality, all-time high. And Trump is making it worse. Democrats aren't going to make it much better. They sound better than Trump. They're not as vile on immigration and women's reproductive rights and all these things. But economically speaking, I mean, the Democratic Party with Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand ain't coming, they're not coming to put more money in your wallets or fix things economically. They talk the talk about it, but they never have. Not in the last 30, 40 years. But environmentally speaking, I don't care if you're progressive, neoliberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. The planet has no ideology. We need Andrew Wheeler. Andrew Wheeler is the incoming acting EPA administrator. Guarantee you, he's probably not as corrupt as Scott Pruitt. He probably won't do all these illegal things that Scott Pruitt did. I guarantee you, though, he is not a friend of the planet. He is not a friend of the water. He is not a friend of the animals and wildlife. He is not a friend of the Geneva Convention. He is not a friend of environmental protesters or indigenous people. He is not a friend of people that live near landfills. He is not a friend of people that live near nuclear waste sites that have to send their kids out with masks because the nuclear waste sites are leaking uranium and God knows what else. That's happening in St. Louis. You don't see much news coverage about that, do you? Nobody Trump appoints to the EPA is going to be a friend of the planet. So don't get too drunk tonight that Scott Pruitt's out. They're just sending another one in. He might not be as corrupt, but this guy's as lethal. Trust me. Trust me. So, I apologize in advance, but I think my donation was in Canadian funds, so that may only work out to about $3. Hey, that $3, Zoops, will help me buy a Fiji water on the road, because Fiji right now is really the only water I'm drinking. It's not a product placement. They're not paying me anything. And I know I'm part of the problem because I'm extracting the water from the poor people in Fiji. I'm part of the problem. So, that's what's going on. Thank you guys as far as those who are leaving funds in the Super Chat. If you don't want to leave funds in the Super Chat, you could always become a monthly Patreon subscriber. Right now, we have 386 Patreon subscribers. I'm going to start doing my podcast again. I kind of slacked on that because I was out on the road reporting. We're doing video diaries, multiple a week. We're also going to start doing weekly chats with the audience. I've been promising that for a while, but unfortunately, When you're on the road, you're on the road, and it's very hard to juggle all these different hats. But we definitely need to get that per month up, because now we got Ty, we got Jen, we got me, and we're trying to hire other people. This is not just talk. We are going to launch a media network that there is no media network out there like it. We are going to be in the field. We're not going to be talking about what you're sending us money for. You're going to see what you're sending us money for, which you've already seen, because we have walked the walk. When you send us money, we go to the places we go, and we knock on doors, and we find out things that the rest of the media chooses not to. And when you see the story that I am working on in Flint, everyone says, why are you so focused on Flint? Why do you keep going to Flint? When you see this story, you'll understand why I kept going back to Flint. Because every single time I went back to Flint, all 11 times, led me to uncovering this story, which frankly, I just spoke with a news editor the other day about this story in Flint. I think that story that I have uncovered in Flint with Jen's help and Ty's help, frankly, is the biggest environmental corruption and cover-up story of this century. I really believe that. I think this is the largest, the most jarring example of economic, environmental corruption, and frankly, ethnic cleansing, if you ask me. And we are going to break that story very soon. Laura Hamilton, $1.99. She wrote in $10, but left $1.99. Either way, appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, to who's... do you accept weed sponsors? Edward Davis, do I accept weed sponsors? I would throw up jumping jacks for some weed sponsors, especially if they send me some free CBD oil. I said it. You're damn right I'd take some weed sponsors. Marijuana should be legalized all over the country. I'm not great with marijuana. I have virgin lungs, so whenever I smoke, typically 1.5, 2 hits in, I'm the goofiest motherfucker you'll ever see in your life. Jen could attest to that, by the way, because Jen, because of my back, Jen was my captain. We went out on a lake. I was a little high. I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little high. She rowed for us. And I think I had a religious experience on this lake. I was so high. She has the video. She could send out the video. She just chose not to because Jen's very worried about me looking, bad. But she could attest to it. This was the funniest thing you ever see in your life. I think I was singing a mix of like Moses and Jesus and all these things. I was super duper high. But also, CBD would help my back, might help my neck. I have some aches. I hear it could help digestion too. Laura, I went to send $10, but I could figure out how to increase. That's okay, Laura. You could also go to jordanchariton.com/sponsor. jordanchariton.com/sponsor to leave more if you want. Jordan, do you realize that YouTubers are losing monetization for having drug-related sponsors? Just ask Pimpucks and a bunch of other cannabis YouTubers. Be careful with that stuff. Hey, guess what? DeFuck is your name. Thanks for the warning, but I don't give a shit. Because pretty soon, once this website launches that we're launching, we're actually going to be trying to guide people to the website, because we're actually going to be going live and doing the majority of our work on our website rather than depending on YouTube, Facebook, and all these social digital outlets that are literally trying to suppress and censor progressive journalists. So I don't really care what YouTube's doing. If weed sponsors want to fund us and sponsor with us, we are happy to work with you. Thank you very much. Jordan, do you think it is a bad thing that labor unions donate to a variety of progressive causes, including politicians, legislations, think tanks? That's a good segue, because I want to get to Ed Schultz. Ed Schultz sadly died today. He was 64 years old. Everything I've read, he died of natural causes, so I guess we'll see what those natural causes were. I only met Ed Schultz once at MSNBC, where I used to work. When I was coming up, as far as even getting interested in politics, even before I started as a journalist or anything like that, I pretty much watched two people. In the mid-2000s, I watched Keith Olbermann before he went insane over this Russiagate stuff, because I thought he was a real special voice as far as going after the Bush administration, the lies over Iraq, and those things. I thought Keith Olbermann was the kind of program that could mesmerize you. So I think that Keith Olbermann was the first one I really got into. Then Ed Schultz was the second one I really got into. And Ed Schultz, I actually worked at MSNBC, so I would be in the newsroom and hear him like ranting on the Ed show at MSNBC. And Ed Schultz was the rare breed. He could throw a bomb, so he was a bomb thrower kind of broadcaster. Whether you liked him or not, I mean, he wasn't boring to watch, that's for sure. But he was also, you kind of, when you watched Ed Schultz, you got the feeling that, like, this is a blue-collar guy. I could see him literally giving this same rant in a union hall, a labor union hall, at a bar with a bunch of workers after they get out of work. He just came across that way. It wasn't BS, what he was saying. A lot of journalists and anchors, what they portray themselves on TV is not how they are when you actually speak with them in real person. Ed Schultz was that way. I didn't know him personally. I heard, some things that he could be difficult and blah, blah, blah. So could a lot of journalists, including myself probably. But I thought Ed Schultz, as far as being a progressive, a real progressive, was one of the true ones in an endangered space for actual progressive journalists. I'm not talking about Rachel Maddow, who's like acceptable progressive, right? Rachel Maddow's progressive to a point, and that's why she's allowed on MSNBC. Chris Hayes used to be progressive before he, got millions of dollars, put on a fancy suit, and now he just kind of does Democratic Party talking points for a living at 8 o'clock on MSNBC. But Ed Schultz really was a true progressive host. He was for the worker guy. I remember watching him during the special elections, I believe, where they had the, whatever that was in Wisconsin, Bill 5, where Scott Walker was trying to basically decimate labor unions' ability to collectively bargain. And Ed Schultz went out there and he was with the workers in Wisconsin. He did the same thing in Ohio. He was really a voice for the people. And frankly, that's why he eventually got fired from MSNBC, which I'm about to remind you of. So I want to play this clip, which I thought was one of, that truly shows you who Ed Schultz was. And again, if you're just coming to this late, it's sad to have to say this, but he passed away today, 64 years old. They said natural causes, so I'm not the guy doing the autopsy, so we'll find out what happened. But 64 is very young. He obviously, he lived a busy life. I don't know if he had health problems. I know his wife had cancer the last few years, but that was apparently in remission. Kamisha Wari says, my dad took me to a Teamsters Local 200 meeting where Jimmy Hoffa was talking. Ed Schultz is like Hoffa, really for the unions. Senate Bill number 10 in Wisconsin. That's right. And I remember I was covering in Florida a meeting with union members where Alan Grayson, who was running for senator there, was giving a speech. But Ed Schultz was the one who brought down the House. Ed Schultz brought down the House, speaking to those union members. And let's face it, unions in America are endangered species. They got endangered during Bill Clinton in the 90s, got more endangered during Barack Obama in the 2000s, and have become, they're starting to fight back more, thank God. But Trump is no friend of unions. Frankly, the Democratic Party hasn't been real friends to unions in many years. If you read Thomas Frank's book, Listen Liberal, you will see that is where the Democratic Party started shifting in the 1970s, away from the New Deal coalition of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, away from labor unions and manufacturing workers and factory workers, basically to suburbanites and managers and Wall Street. So let me play this clip so you can see what I think was Ed Schultz in his purest sense. Here we go.
I want to play this tape. This is the president just a moment ago mentioning this network, MSNBC. Here it is. I want to talk about some stuff that creates some controversy because it's important. And one of those policies right now that I'm focused on is new trade agreements with other countries. And if you were watching MSNBC and all this stuff, and you're thinking, "Oh man, well, I love Obama, but what's going on here?" So I want to set the record straight here. I want everybody to be clear about what we're doing, because I believe in what I'm doing here. Well, Mr. President, I want you to know that I believe in what I'm doing. And if you can prove to the American people that there will not be a depression of wages, if you can prove to the American people that this will create jobs, if you want to go face to face with me, President Obama, I'm ready to go, because I have the facts, okay?
And
I also...
You should be very proud. You should be very proud. I think he is talking about you. And I'll tell you why. Because, as I said on the floor of the Senate yesterday, to the best of my knowledge, ABC, CBS, and NBC, and CNN, to the best of my knowledge, have not discussed the largest trade agreement in the history of the United States of America. And we might want to ask why that is the case.
Well, why would President Obama use the MSNBC call letters? It's been shown by Media Matters that this show has covered the TPP more than anybody else, so I would imagine that he's talking about the Ed Show. But the president has never done a sit-down interview with Ed Schultz. And, hey, my life is fine. But you know what? On this deal, the president's wrong and I'm right. The president is telling the American people that every union in this country is wrong. And I can tell you that every union in this country has been around longer than President Obama when it comes to trade deals and having to live with them.
And not just unions, Ed, not just unions.
Yeah.
You got many environmental organizations that have deep concerns with this agreement as well.
Okay. Senator Bernie Sanders, I'm sorry to interrupt the interview.
That's
I appreciate how courteous you were in allowing us to do that, but we wanted to take the president live.
Good.
Thanks so much, Senator. Appreciate it. President Obama, a word from this broadcaster to you. Put my credibility up against any broadcaster in this country. I supported you big time. I was the first liberal talker to support you. I've carried your water big time when it comes to health care. I've carried your water on the economy and defending your move on the automobile industry. But, Mr. President, you can take shots at this network, but I guarantee you, you are wrong on this, and you cannot prove to the American people. This is not about generic talk that we have to think about the global economy and the cat's out of the bag and everything else. American workers will suffer if this deal goes through. And, Mr. President, your recovery of the economy, the automobile industry, and healthcare will not be your legacy. It will be what you're doing to the very people who put you in office. Had you not had the unions, you'd have never beat John McCain. Had you not had the unions, you'd have never beat Mitt Romney. And now you're turning your back on these people, trying to convince them that they got to do this phony trade deal that's going to ship jobs overseas. I'd love to talk to you face to face, Mr. President. We're back with more on the Ed Show. Keep it right here. You are watching
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen to that? And by the way, rest in peace. Rest in peace. That was in April 2015. His ass was fired in July. His ass was fired from MSNBC in July. He was the only anchor on MSNBC, frankly, in the corporate media that I saw, that went after Obama on the TPP. And for his troubles, I'm surprised they didn't fire him the next day. And I happen to know people who worked at MSNBC on his show. And they told me at that time that Ed and MSNBC president Phil Griffin had been fighting for weeks because MSNBC and Ed talked about this actually in the last few months. He came out and said, yeah, MSNBC tried to stop me from reporting on Bernie Sanders, especially during the campaign. And that was the most censorship I ever got in my entire news organization, in my entire news career, was at MSNBC. So he gives an impassioned speech like that against President Obama trying to ram the TPP through, which was literally, I mean, TPP was like NAFTA on steroids. And most of my reporting, I see the damage NAFTA has done, because all you got to do is drive through the Midwest and other parts of the country to see what these free trade deals have done to American workers. Yeah, we have a globalized market and la la la. And yeah, technology has made a lot of jobs obsolete. But that's not, that's something that out-of-touch politicians, frankly, people like my brother, who I love dearly, but works in the finance industry, they say because they're not affected. They just say it as a matter of fact. Well, you got to get with the times, these factory workers and these people who work with their hands. No. You're our government. Not me, I don't work with my hands, but you are the government. So you're not supposed to leave people to die. You're not supposed to leave people without an ability to find work. You think that they would start in all this tech industry, the tech industry right now, in Silicon Valley. You think they would just say, hey, Facebook, hey, Twitter, hey, YouTube. We think we want to just, we want to make it so that other countries could do the social media. We don't need you anymore. So we're just going to close down Silicon Valley. We're going to close down Facebook, Twitter. We could get that done in India. Right? We could get that done in China and Mexico, and all just go back to get retrained for the jobs of tomorrow. You think that would happen to Silicon Valley workers? I don't. And let me tell you something. And I didn't know Ed Schultz. I talked to him once. That was a brave thing he did at MSNBC, because he knew when he was going after Obama that he was going after MSNBC. He knew when he was going after Obama, he was going after Comcast, who owns MSNBC and is a corporation that basically was the driving force behind ending net neutrality. That's the progressive network, MSNBC. He knew what he was doing, and he knew by him doing that, there's a good chance he can get fired. And by the way, he paid for it. Ed Schultz, for his troubles, got put into media Siberia. And in the last few years of his life, he was an anchor on RT America. I like RT America, but I'm not going to pretend that RT America has the same audience as an MSNBC. It doesn't. There's nothing wrong with working at RT. I think Lee Camp does a great job. I think Ed, before his very untimely death today, did it. I enjoyed his show the few times I saw it. But there are so few people out there like Ed Schultz. There are not that many fire-breathing anchors that are actually progressive and will not just toe the line, ranting against Trump as if America was just dandy. America was just super-duper dandy before Trump became president. The corporations were wonderful citizens. No, Ed Schultz was consistent. And he didn't just rant against Trump because he saw a lot of issues were happening during the Trump administration that had nothing to do with Trump. I saw Ed Schultz continue on his RT America show covering Standing Rock and the fallout from that awful decision and those unlawful protests. I saw him covering things like prophylactic acids that have been dumped in waterways all over this country. In English, basically chemicals that are used to make Teflon and other cooking ware that are cancer causing and have been dumped in waterways in the Ohio River Valley, in North Carolina, and many other places. Ed Schultz is covering that. So if you're not a student of real progressive media, I mean real, not some of the ones that are out there claiming to be progressive but aren't. Do yourself a favor tonight. Do YouTube search and watch some of Ed Schultz's old clips. You will realize we just lost one of the great ones, in my opinion. One of the great ones. And I don't want to talk like I knew him, but I do know that from people that did know him, he did do a lot of things that were not made public to help the people that he covered, financially speaking, to help a lot of people, and he did not want credit for it. So Ed Schultz, taken to us far too soon, and I don't pretend to be anywhere near Ed Schultz, but I do say that I care deeply about the real stories in this country. I care deeply about those communities that are getting taken advantage of and screwed. I care deeply about when I go into communities like Flint and other communities, and it looks like a bomb was just detonated and cities are left to die in this country, while I keep hearing talking points, oh, the economy's humming along here. No, the economy's humming along for very few people. That's what's actually happening, folks. The economy's humming along for well-connected and, frankly, very few people. The majority of people in this country are not doing well financially, live paycheck to paycheck. So, and Princeton just did a study. Speaking of Ed Schultz, who was a champion of labor workers, Princeton just did this study. Princeton economists find that unions had a historical role in helping address income inequality. And unfortunately, income inequality has exploded since labor unions have gone under attack in this country. The rise in income inequality between skilled and unskilled workers since the 1970s might be due, at least in part, to a decline in union membership. Princeton University researchers have found. Blah, 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 blah. Let me get into it. The study is the first to take a long-term look at the relationship between income inequality and union membership. Previously, there hadn't been a reliable source of union membership at the individual or household level prior to 1973. The researchers examined a new source of union membership data dating to the 1930s, monthly Gallup opinion polls that collected a variety of information about Americans, including their race, gender, income, and political opinions. The pollsters also asked interviewees whether a member of their household belonged to a union. Among the study's findings were that unions consistently have provided workers with a 10 to 20% wage boost over their non-union counterparts over the past 8 decades. The researchers also discovered that when unions have expanded, whether at the national or state level, they tended to draw in more unskilled workers and raise their relative wages, with significant impacts on inequality. Quote, what we're simply trying to do in this study is to be able to say something systematic, historically, whether there seems to have been an inverse relationship between unionization and inequality, so that when unions were strong, inequality tended to be lower. And why I think this study is important in the context of Ed Schultz's death. Ed Schultz was like not a poor guy. He did pretty damn well at MSNBC, from what I understand, as far as how much money he was making. He was a long-time radio broadcaster as well. So a lot of people, especially journalists, when they start to make a good amount of money, Dustin, thank you for the $5 you just left. As a reminder to anyone coming late, I am now monetized and I have a super chat, so you could leave funds if you'd like. Those funds are going so we can get back on the road. So thank you to everyone who's been super chatting and leaving money. Most journalists and anchors, the more money they make, the more well-to-do they get. They kind of start distancing themselves from the causes and the communities and the people that they used to champion, because they're no longer in touch with those communities. That is why I very rarely, go to cover like a wealthy community with a problem. They got enough help. I go to the poorest of the poor communities. I've had offers to take first class before, and I turned them down. It might not seem like a big deal to you, but to me, the minute you take first class, you start forgetting the working class. The minute you shower yourself with artificial, materialistic things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to take a vacation now and then. I like nice things in life, but I don't need them. Because my happiness is not derived from that. Pleasant things and showering myself with nice things. My happiness is seeing when people are getting screwed and being able to help those people. That's what makes me happy. And I see a lot of that in people like Ed Schultz. I see, he was somebody that started doing very, very well financially, but never stopped covering the labor union movement. Never stopped covering the fight for health care. The Ed Show used to cover those free healthcare clinics a lot on the Ed Show on MSNBC. Ed Schultz, no matter how much money he was making, cared about the vulnerable. cared about communities that are getting taken advantage of. So again, it's very sad that he has passed away. I think he was intentionally marginalized and silenced in the last few years of his life when MSNBC fired him, essentially for going up against the Obama administration and being a little too pro-TPP. You're allowed to be like a little bit progressive, but not economically. If you start calling out the corporations and the companies and the banks and all that on MSNBC, you're gone. You're gone. CNN too. And of course, Fox News. Yes, he was silenced. Of course he was silenced, Mitch asks. Nobody would hire him. He had to go to RT America. I'm not knocking RT America, but this is a man who had 30 to 40 years of media experience. He should have easily gotten a job on NBC, CBS, ABC, PBS. Easily. He had a large audience at MSNBC. When Keith Olbermann left, he eventually ended up as Keith Olbermann's replacement at 8 o'clock p.m., which is prime time. That's the coveted time slot, 8 o'clock, and he did very well in the ratings. So yes, he was silenced in the last years of his life, and it's very sad, very sad. So before I go, I want to give you guys a few updates. Like I said, we are monetized now, so thank you all who are doing super chat. When I see you guys, whoever's leaving funds, I definitely want to get to your comments as quickly as I can. We're going to probably do like a little mini Jimmy Dore kind of thing where we start doing some super chats on the weekend, which is a little bit more Q&A. Not that I'm Jimmy Dore. He's got a huge, way bigger audience than me at this point. But we're going to try to do some stuff on the weekends when we can. Harder over the summer because who's sitting around their YouTube over the summer. But we're going to try to do super chats. We're going to try to do more super chats when we're on the road, so you can kind of see what life is like on the road. I'm not going to equivocate. We need your funds. We need your support. We need funding to get back out of the road. We need funding. You got to make money and spend money to make more money. So we need funding to get the right equipment, to have a travel budget, to have a marketing budget, and to cover the things that everyone else is ignoring. And I can't wait to get this Flint story out so you can see not only up close the horrible corruption that's happening in this country, but what we're capable of doing. Cindy asks, are you going to Minnesota's Line 3 protest? That is on my long list for this summer. Absolutely. I want to go to Minnesota and cover Line 3. I also wanted to go back to Standing Rock and do kind of like a After the Rock type of thing to show you people's lives after the cameras have left. Because as I always say, the real story doesn't start when all the cameras are there. Yes, there's always, when a lot of cameras are in place, something's going on. But the real corruption and the silent injustice happens when everybody leaves. Everybody leaves. Jordan, what do you think about 47% of Democratic candidates for Congress are running on Medicare for All? By the way, I'm excited as fuck about the progressive revolution. I don't understand why it's only 47%. The Democratic Party, honestly, they are, I agree with my old boss, Cenk, it's almost like they are paid to lose. Because if they looked at the polls, they would win a lot more elections if they were for Medicare for all over the country. Medicare for all is now at like 50% among Republicans, for God's sakes. Among Republicans. Yet, it's only 47%. I think it should be a lot more than that. And if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just told you something, and by the way, I keep seeing these like thought pieces on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and everybody's now an expert. 10 out of 10 of these places writing puff pieces about her now couldn't be bothered to even know who she was before. So I say bravo to the Young Turks at first, The Intercept, Jimmy Dore, and a lot of other progressive outlets that did give her the time of day, and other Justice Democrat candidates, even if they're not winning. These are the people we need to support because they are the ones that are going to give the light of day to progressive candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez when it matters, not the day after she has a historic upset. I interviewed her when I was at the Young Turks. I was very impressed by her. And I think these outlets that actually gave her the time of day early deserve a lot of credit. And these other ones need to, instead of writing puff pieces about her, learn a lesson, go cover other progressive candidates, even on the state and local level, that you haven't been covering, that if they get a little coverage, you might see a lot more progressive victory of this country. The media was caught with their tails between their legs because the media is not interested in covering progressive change because the media is conservative. Don't buy this bullshit. Oh, the liberal media. The media is not liberal. It's never been liberal. So that's it, folks. I'm going to try to go live more now that I'm home. We also have Teresa Joy that's been going live, so definitely check her out when she's live on the channel. Ty is going to be going live at some points to do his own reporting, and Ty and I will be back on the road as soon as we have the funding and find where we want to go. As always, you could email Jordan at protonmail.com. That is email Jordan at protonmail.com. I'll write it in here for you so you know. If you have a story idea, I get a lot of my stories from you. So send me what's going on in your neck of the woods. Email Jordan at protonmail.com. And also, your contributions are needed. So patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Right now we got 386. We had 400, but every time when the month ends, it always goes down. People's credit cards declines or whatever. We got to get it. We got to get that way up. We got to get that up to 500, 600 by the end of summer. So thank you. If you are a Patreon subscriber, if you're not, I hope you'll consider as low as like $2 a month, $5 a month. Support real journalism in the field. This is the first video I've done from my apartment in probably a month. By myself in probably a month because we've been out in the field the majority of the time. And our work, once you see it, it doesn't always happen overnight. I'm working on a story. I'm pitching it to a few places. Once you see it, you're going to see what you were paying for. Because this story, it's going to infuriate you. It's going to break your heart, but it's also going to give you hope, I think. So, thanks everyone for watching. I'll be back most likely tomorrow. Peace.